My name is Roya Rastegar, and I'm very excited to have Virgil Williams, who co-wrote the screenplay, Rachel Morrison, Mako Kamitsuna, and Cassian Elwes. I love seeing the audience after this film because everyone's kind of just devastated. And I'm sure you guys are numb to it because you have been seeing this all year since the film premiered at Sundance.
I'm not numb. I mean, to seeing the reaction?
Yeah.
Not at all.
Oh, good.
Every time I see it, it's a sort of new affirmation. I mean, a lot of hard work. Years of hard work.
Can you start with just talking about how you came to this story, Hilary Jordan's novel, and what your process was of adapting it, and then how you started to work with Dee Reese, who's the director, and also who was one of the co-writers. Yeah. I heard that there was a change in the ending to what the actual I haven't read the novel.
Yeah. Well, I didn't find the novel. The novel found me, and it was almost 8 years ago now when the novel first found me. And the second I closed it, I knew. It felt like To Kill a Mockingbird for this generation. Because of that revolving point of view, it gives it sort of a Twitter feed feel that gives it the illusion of being kinetic, and it gives it the illusion of movement, but it's really sort of sneaking up on you underneath. And I knew that had to be, even as I was pitching it, I knew that somehow the writing, I had to write, at least try somehow to tonally write to those 6 different voices, and that was the thing.
That's so ambitious. This is your first
My first produced screenplay.
Produced screenplay.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And so then how did you work with Dee when she came on? As the producer.
Dee and Cassian came about 4 or 5 years later. So that script was written and sort of went around town, and then Cassian was actually responsible for getting it to Dee.
Cassian, you have produced some of my favorite films. Cassian has produced The Butler, I Origins, The Words, so many.
Well, Dallas Buyers Club's the one they always bring up, but like that.
How did you find this script, this project?
Well, these 2 young producers. It's a long, convoluted story, but there's one of my co-producers is Sally Jo Effinson, and she put up some money to help the script get developed originally, I think, and then they had a hard time getting a director, and then her son and his partner. So I'll get this straight. They had come to me on another movie that's a much longer story, which I won't go into, which turned out to be a disaster. And because they told me they had all the money, and then 3 days before it started shooting, it didn't. And I had to run around and get the money in 3 days, which then became a week and a half. But because I told everyone we were having technical difficulties, and I pushed the movie back a week. But eventually, we made it, and actually, I really enjoyed making that picture. It was with Joe Dante, who's a wonderful, who'd done Gremlins in the '80s, and I was a big fan of his. And Anton Yelchin was the star of it, who I got to meet before he died, which was very sad, in a freak accident. And anyway, so about 6 months later, they called me up and said, "You're not still mad at me, mad at us about this whole thing, are you?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." No, not really, because I had a soft spot for these 2 guys. And they go, "Well, we got this script that is totally different, and we want to bring it over to you. And it's an Oscar movie, and you're the guy that can make this happen. It's your kind of thing. This is what you do." So I was like, "All right, sure, come over." They bring over the script. They pitch it to me. It sounds kind of cool. Sounds like the kind of thing that I'm interested in. So I went home that night, read the script. And about halfway through, because I'm English and you can't really hear that accent anymore, but I am. I didn't know anything about the Jim Crow era. And, they didn't teach that to us in school in England. They just taught us about all the kings and the terrible things they'd done. So anyway, I was reading the script, and about halfway through, I start crying. And I just feel the tears coming, because what Virgil had written was so beautiful. And then by the end, I'm really sobbing. I couldn't believe that people treat each other this way. that humans treat each other this way. And then I started thinking, and I'm crying, and the last word in the script was love, and that just had me. And I was like, I'm going to make this movie. And then over the next few days, I started thinking about, who could be the director for this movie? And I have a program. In the last 5 years, I've become a born-again feminist. And I have a program called the Horizon Award, and I promote young female directors to come out of colleges across the country to do mentorships at the Sundance Film Festival with myself and 2 other wonderful female producers, Christine Vachon, who produced Wonder Wheel Wonderstruck this year, and did a great picture called Still Alice last year, or 2 years ago. And Lynette Howell, who I worked on a picture called Blue Valentine with, who I love. So I started thinking it's going to be an African American because of the subject matter. It has to be. It has to be told from that perspective. And then it has to be a woman. And then I started thinking about, okay, who are the black female directors that I really admire out there? I started going down a list. I won't name them all, but I'm sure you guys can think of them too. And then I suddenly thought, what happened to Dee Reese? That movie that she did in Sundance 6 years ago, Pariah, that was an incredible debut. And she had won the Indie Spirit Award for Best First Time Director. And then I look her up on IMDb, and she's done one thing, which is an HBO movie about Bessie Smith in between. But after 6 years, this is classic for what it's like to be a woman in this business, and particularly African-American women. She hadn't gotten another movie. I mean, it was insane. And so then I became obsessed about it. I was like, I'm going to get her to do this. Somehow I'm going to get her to do it. And I called her agent, who turns out is my former assistant at William Morris. And I go, great, Dee's going to do this movie. He goes, no, Cassian. She only writes her own stuff. I'm like, just send her the script. Do me a favor, okay? Come on, just send her the script. Okay, And when you meet Craig, you'll laugh because this is how he talks. And he calls me back 3 days later, and he goes, oh my God, I just had the best conversation I've ever had with her. I go, what do you say? She called me up and said, this is why you're my agent, for sending me this script. And so she calls me up, and she starts pitching me on how she's going to do it. And I said, Dee, stop right there. You don't need to tell me why you need to do this movie, okay? I offered this movie to you. I'm going to tell you why you need to do this with me. And it turns out that I'm the first producer that ever offered her a movie. And all this time, she had been trying and begging and scraping and trying to audition for jobs and never really got what she wanted. And so she kind of gave up and decided that she was going to just write her own stuff, as almost a defensive mechanism. And she, I don't know what you guys think. I think she's a superstar. When you see this movie, and I'm going to say one thing here, and I promised myself I wasn't going to say it, but it's been bugging me for the last few days because, and there's various things, and I'm just going to say, and then I'm going to turn it over to these genius women because Rachel is the cinematographer, and I think you guys have to agree this film is unbelievable. Unbelievable. And Mako edited Pariah, and she worked with Dee on this picture too. In Sundance, you send them the movie, and this is the way it works with them. And about 2 months later, they'll call you up and go, okay, here, you're in, you're out. The old days of the politics are all gone. It's just, here's the movie, you're in, you're out. And this movie, they called the next day and they said it's in. Not only is it in, it's going to be our centerpiece. It's going to be on Saturday night, 6:30 in the Eccles. 1,000 people are going to be sitting there, or 800 or whatever it is. It's that big theater there.
1,200. I was there.
How
I was
many
so
is it?
excited. 1,200.
1,200. And it's going to be Saturday night, 6:30. It's we couldn't be more excited about this movie. Dee Reese is unbelievable what she did with this picture. So we're super excited, And so we show the movie, and then at the end there's a standing ovation. People stand up just spontaneously and start going crazy. Then they always sit down, and she comes up with the cast, and they all stand up again and go crazy again. I'm like, wow, okay, now this is what you dream about when you're a producer. It's like, this is the reaction that you're going to get. And we go back to a party afterwards, which was, if seeing the movie, you'll laugh. The woman who organized it, Danielle Palin, organized a Mary J. Blige disco party for us, which, you know, was not exactly the right tone for the party afterwards, but it was fine. And then I'm looking at my iPhone because I want to see what the early reviews are that are coming. And the reviewers don't even wait to write their review. They start tweeting immediately. Brilliant, genius, amazing, incredible. I mean, like the response was just off the hook. And I, you know, worked on a lot of movies now. I've never had this kind of response for a movie before. And so and then some of the smaller distribution companies are coming to the party and they're like, oh, Cassian, it's going to sell for so much money. It's going to be a big hit. You know, well done. Congratulations. Amazing for them. Amazing for Dee. Amazing for the cast. Amazing for everybody. And I'm thinking, wow, great. Okay, this is going to be a fun ride. So that's Saturday night. Sunday, no offers. Monday, no offers. Then on Monday night, they sold The Big Sick for like $12 million. And then on Tuesday night, they sold Pat of Cakes for $9.5 million. And then they sold a movie that was about anorexia with my friend Keanu for $8 million. And I'm like, and everyone's telling us that's involved in selling the movie with me, oh, you know, we're waiting. People are interested. They'll be coming. Nothing. And you don't want to call the distribution companies because then they immediately sense, okay, it's bottom feeding time. If he's calling us, then we just can get this for the lowest price possible. He must be desperate. But I want to call and I want to get a feel. Like, I can't understand why I'm not getting this reaction. And one of the distribution companies, and I'm not going to name him, who is the head of the company, I call him up. He does this for a living, puts art house movies out in America and does very well with them. He says to me, Cassian, this subject matter, directed by women, I promise you, is going to be so hard to market this. This isn't worth anything. It's not going to be seen by anybody. And I'm sorry to be saying this stuff, but this is outrageous, actually. And on Thursday, Netflix came out of the blue, saw the movie, went nuts, and paid the biggest price in Sundance and saved this film. So I'm sorry I hijacked this whole thing, but this thing has been in my head for so long. You know, a lot of people say, well, is it a movie? Is it Netflix? Netflix saved our butt, okay? Netflix saved this movie. And they proved this guy wrong, that a lot of people are going to see this movie. He told me nobody was going to see it, and a lot of people are going to see it. And they really have done a phenomenal job. But I want to make one thing clear. It was made as a movie. It was shot as a movie. It was written as a movie. It was produced as a movie. It was edited as a movie. And it was acted as a movie. And so when people think about, okay, what does that mean? This is a movie. And I hope that, and I love the fact that you guys came out of your homes this evening to watch this on the screen, because this is the way it should be seen. I'm not saying it can't be seen in every other way, where this is the future. What Netflix is doing is, you know, agnostic in their devices. I'm cool with that, because what they did in saving this picture, they are the bravest company in this business. And I think every night I think about it, and I thank them for what they've done.
I've never seen Lawrence of Arabia, Casablanca, any of the Godfathers on the big screen. Never. I've only seen them on small screens. Those movies stand as icons to me. And those movies informed the things that I write. Those movies enabled me to write that. So maybe I missed something, but I don't feel like that at all. It's like telling a blind kid who was born blind, oh, you're missing out. Am I?
Anyway, tell your friends to see this movie and prove this idiot wrong.
I mean, that anyone would have the gall to say that, like, I think probably because the film premiered, 2 days before Trump's inauguration, is just, and who couldn't see how important this film is to our understanding of race relations today, and all of that is, you know, really myopic. But Yeah.
Well, Virgil can speak to that. I mean, this movie is a movie that's set in 1949?
Well, it's the book spans before World War II, during World War II, and after World War II.
It's totally relevant to now.
It is so relevant.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Can we, Mako, I'd love to hear from you. You worked with Dee before, and Rachel, you've shot some amazing films. Rachel shot Fruitvale Station, Dope, Cake, so many really amazing,
And the
beautiful films.
upcoming Black Panther, which is going to be gigantic.
So can you both talk about how you
Female power.
how you connected female and black power? Can you talk about how you both connected with the project? Mako, I'm sure you connected through Dee
because I knew Dee from working on Pariah together.
And so, can you both talk about how you worked with Dee on this project, and how you came to it, Rachel?
From the production side.
Dee she approached me initially with the project, and it was a very easy yes for me, which is unusual because most of everything I read is terrible. And I was a fan of Dee's work from the past, Pariah in particular. I mean, both the short and the feature, but specifically to take a short and make it into a feature that works just as well is actually a tremendous skill. I think a lot of people can make good shorts, but then to make the feature version and have it still work, that was a testament to her abilities in my mind. And then, a feature set in the Dust Bowl era for me is like a dream come true as a cinematographer. And I feel, especially in this day and age, it's not enough to just entertain. Like, I really believe in that we have a sort of responsibility to have messaging in the stories that we tell. So it was a very easy yes. But then in terms of our working approach, she had a bunch of references that she had culled, and what I thought was really interesting is none of them were movies. There was a documentary, but other than that, it was a lot of fine art references. And I, in response, kind of brought more fine art references, mostly photography. We never sort of approached it by looking at other films. We were sort of looking more in the two-dimensional space and then talking about color palettes and things like that.
What were some artists that she was referencing? Do you remember?
There's a sort of sculptor, painter, multimedia artist named Whitfield Lavelle, who specifically a lot of his portraiture on wood was something that she was really interested in as I think, representation for the Jackson family and sort of the warmth of the earthy tones and things like that. And then Robert Frank's The Americans, and kind of looking at, the American dream versus the American reality, which became really a motif for everything we were doing. And then I brought to the table just all the Farm Security Administration photography that is sort of what informed me coming up. I started as a photographer, actually. So Dorothea Lange, Walker Evans, Gordon Parks, Arthur Rothstein, Ben Shahn, just a book like this big, a pile of books this big. And we kind of just called through those also for design references.
And so then how did you, it's rare to find a cinematographer who has worked consistently on films with black actors and shoots black people so beautifully. Can you talk about how you did that, what your kind of structures were, how you worked with Dee and also the actors?
I mean, I think that the reason that I've shot so many films with black actors is less to do with my ability and more to do with, the stories that I'm trying to tell and the way that, I don't know, those are the stories that I've been most interested in. But, I think everybody's skin tones, I actually don't believe that it's really about sort of black actors or white actors. Like, I think you have to recognize the differences in skin tonality. There are certain white actors that are very, very hard to light and others that are very easy. I don't think I've ever met an actor easier to light than Lupita Nyong'o, who's, she's got darker skin, but she's got amazingly round qualities that are just, you can do no wrong. So it's not, I don't know that it's as simple as sort of black and white. I think it's just about sort of recognizing, in any given space, you sort of start with the actor that's most challenging, and that sometimes can be a white actor, sometimes it's a black actor, and I sort of work backwards from that. I light the person who's sort of the most challenging for that space, and then I kind of, finesse everybody else.
Rachel, she won't give herself this much credit, but she's amazing, and what she did on this set was incredible. I mean, this movie was shot in July and August, which you can only imagine what that's like in Louisiana. So, in between the fact that it was 103 every single day, she was carrying this camera around in quite a few of the shots herself, which is not a small thing, in this ridiculous heat with this kind of a harness thing on that you wore with it. And then in between, it would rain when it wasn't supposed to, and then we would create our own rain when it wasn't raining. I mean, it was, and then the mud, because Dee said to me from the start, by the way, when we go to shoot this movie, there's going to be a lot of mud. I was like, okay. And I didn't realize exactly how much. I mean, maybe, Rachel can speak to this, but the actual mechanics of making this movie was insane.
It was tough. I mean, the elements, I sort of describe it as the reverse Revenant. Everybody talks about how cold the Revenant was. We were sort of, dealing with the hot version of it. Attacked by mosquitoes, like Cassian said, rain when you didn't want it, no rain when you did. Continuity, nightmare in the South. I mean, you can't you basically start a scene in full sun, and 2 hours later, you can't find the sun. 20 minutes later, it's pouring rain, and then an hour after that, it's full sun again. So try to do like 2 pages of continuous, action in that. It was the hardest I've ever had to work to make light look natural, because we were really just always kind of, battling the continuity of it. But
the artistic part of you, which was, amazing. There were moments where you said, let's just go out and shoot this shot where it's perfect now, where the sun is it's just setting, and they can go, it'll be like the early morning thing when they carry the lanterns out and things like that. I mean, just, things that you were thinking about constantly that just added so much texture to this movie.
I'm just going to jump in. I met Dee working with Roya, her first feature, and it was very close material. It was a semi-autobiographical story of hers coming out as a lesbian woman, and which she did later in the 20s. But she imagined what it would have been like if she had come out when she was a teenager, and what kind of conflict would that cause within her family. So working with Dee as a director I worked with a lot of directors as an editor, but my relationship with her was just like a butter. Like the reason for that is the performance. We both never argued on which take of any actor's performance that I feel, and she feels. We totally concurred with what's good performance for the film. And that gave me a trust in, we're in same wavelength when it comes to reading. There's a lot of listening. My work is about listening to performance. And the ones I felt like we're in the same wavelength, I completely trusted her, and she trusted me. So it was really all about how far can we take this character. It's not about selecting, it's like how much can we push it creatively, structurally. So that's really my working relationship with Dee.
And they edited in upstate New York so that none of the producers could actually come up there and see what they were up to.
Oh, so we cooped up in there, far away from our New York producers.
Those dastardly producers.
This film has such intense themes and moments of emotionality, and those moments of emotionality are so grounded in the details. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about the details and your roles in kind of creating those details. Virgil, starting with you, there are these moments where, for example, when she nibbles on the chocolate, and just it makes you really have this feeling of just how rare that was and how special that was. Or the scene where Jamie builds her the shower, and just what that feels like to be able to take a shower. Can you talk about whether those details were in the novel, and what that process is of writing the details, and then what that process is, maybe Cassian, you could speak to how Dee works with the actors to actually act those details, so that then Rachel, you can capture them, and Mako, you can kind of put them together.
Yeah, I sort of look at my job initially as sort of, air reconnaissance. So, my job is to take pictures of what it looks like from high above. And I endeavored to sort of leave breadcrumbs, a trail of breadcrumbs, where I thought tonal differences should occur, especially when it came to sort of the delineation of voices and the delineation of tone for each of those 6 characters. Again, that was something that I started to conceive even at the sort of trying to sell it level. So my job was basically to sort of create space and to sort of leave signposts, just sort of like this way, and to leave space for, because I didn't know who was going to direct the film, and as a television writer, I've had a very long television career. I've had to learn to communicate in the language of tonality and intent, and to sort of very quickly be able to sort of delineate voice. So that's what I tried to do. I just sort of tried to carve space so that, because I knew whoever was going to direct that movie would eventually have to make that movie their own, and would have to infuse a sort of a personal element into it, and thank God we got D. Thank God we got D. Only D could have directed this film. Only D could have changed the script in such a way. Only D brought this astounding amount of personal history, astounding amount of vision, astounding amount of drive. I mean, if you saw Pariah, she did it again. I mean, she did it again, times 10. So that was sort of my job. That was how I sort of tried to just offensive linemen, football analogy, to sort of set blocks and to clear space. So that it could be much like the story, so that I could sort of pass the baton.
Dee had a diary. I think it's her grandmother or her great
grandmother,
grandmother's diary, who was a sharecropper, and she kept and her grandmother was the little girl that's on the sack being pulled across the cotton fields. And so she had all these incredible details inside this that she brought and infused into the script, because, as Virgil says, when you go to make a great art movie, and I really think this is one of the great art movies, a director turns it into something personal. It becomes something that they start that you can feel their soul and spirit inside it. Those are the great movies that I love. When you see movies like the John Ford pictures, or George Stevens movies like Giant, or The Grapes of Wrath, you can feel the director working inside the movies too. Not in an obvious way, but you can feel that there's some personal connection to the stories that they're telling, and that they've done the research, that they're living it. And Dee lived this movie. I wasn't there when she did the rehearsals with the actors. I know that she didn't specifically, because I've now listened to her doing a lot of Q&As, did not have them read the script with each other. She wanted them to have their own come with it fresh to the set and say the words with each other. What she did is she put them in one-on-ones with each other and did sort of exercising with them, where they would, Mary and Carrie would go, "You've got the power. No, you got the power. No, you got the power." And then in the scenes with Jason and Rob, they would just say the N-word back to each other. Jason would just say it, and Rob would just listen. And so that they would become comfortable with the way that the dialogue was going to be said, so they wouldn't on the set suddenly freeze up.
Isn't it also, "You're a good N, you're a good N, yes sir, you're a good N, yes sir." They had to practice that. That was, yeah.
So her process is kind of incredible with the actors, and as I said, I've done a lot of movies, so I sometimes, and I don't take this the wrong way, sometimes the actors come and then they go back to their trailers between the shots. This was not the case on this movie. All the actors, even if they weren't doing scenes, would come and sit on the set and watch the other actors doing it, because they were so entranced by what they were doing, and they wanted to feel like that they were up to speed with where they were in the story, with what the other actors were doing, so that they could also be aware of what was going on. So I've never seen anything quite like it. None of the actors went back to the trailers, and they couldn't really, because it was like a mile and a half away from from where we were shooting, because I mean, what Rachel and Dee had decided was that they were going to have like almost not quite 360, but like 270 view for the houses of each other and the fields around them, so that even though it's quite intimate, you also get the feel of the landscape around them. So the trailers had to be quite some ways off, so they couldn't really go back. So they actually just sat in the cars between shots sometimes, because it was so hot with the air conditioning on, or just sit on the set, because the moment you start trying to get cool in the car and you come back out, you start sweating again. So it's like, it was an amazing experience I think that all the actors will tell you that they had one of the great experiences of their entire lives. I don't think, as an actor, to get to perform and get to be so intimately involved in the whole aspect of the making of the movie from the beginning till the end, and now the bonding that's been going on, we're traveling around with each other and talking about it. They were in it. They never used their own names. They only used the characters' names with each other. They were. I mean, I honestly have never seen anything quite like it. And Mary J., well, you know what she looks like in real life, the wigs and the nails and the eyelashes and the look and the whatever. The first day I came out, I knew she was shooting that day, and I came out to the set. I was a little bit late, and I came out to the set, and I said to Dee, "So where's Mary J?" And she's like, "That's Mary J." I was like, "What? That's Mary J. Blige? Are you kidding?" And she... she's amazing in this picture. She's almost unrecognizable in the movie. She really gave everything she had to Dee Reese on this picture, everything. And I think that Dee rewarded her in a way, because look what has happened with her in this movie, and every actor. I think, each one has come out of this movie so close to it and so part of it. And that's because the director and the cinematographer and editor and the writer, people that made this movie, made it with so much love.
Can you talk a little bit about how you and Dee worked together on shooting those? The sound design was unbelievable.
Woman, by the way, who mixed the sound.
And another woman scored it, which is beautiful. I mean, the score is just tremendous.
It was her first score, and she did the whole thing in 5 weeks. It was insane.
And Dee shot the movie in 29 days.
Which includes 2 days in Hungary and 1 day in New York. In New York, we did the scene with the plane, because we found the old plane in a museum there, and we shot inside it. And then in Hungary, we shot the World War II sequences, which Dee and Rachel are very proud of the fact that they shot a war sequence before a tank battle before lunch.
Just in terms of the detail work, I think what she did with the actors was kind of the mantra for the set too, was to build a very authentic environment. The idea of trying to shoot 360, which wasn't quite realistic, but 270, it was beneficial to everybody. I mean, except for the grips and electrics and camera, who always had to move their gear in the one wedge that we weren't shooting. But for the actors to be able to look around, and instead of seeing trailers, they could inhabit the space. And in terms of hair and makeup, it was really all about not looking like there was hair and makeup, and the sweat. At some point, we just embraced. It wasn't even touching up because people were sweaty. It was just, it's 103 degrees. That's how it is. But I would say that really lent itself to the detail work, because it meant that I could sort of steal shots, or that dawn scene. Once people start existing in an environment, you can grab things. I mean, there was a shot that I don't know if it made it in the film, but Mary J was just, she was sitting in one of those rooms, because like Cassian said, nobody could kind of go anywhere, and because she was there and she was kind of existing as her character, I could grab a camera and sneak a shot of her just inhabiting that role. And so I think that kind of lent to it. But it was also, for us, it was really about kind of contrasting, intimacy with scope. So looking for moments that felt intimate and, nuanced and small, the macro and the micro.
We are almost out of time, but I just wanted to, since, we have so many actors in the audience, I wanted to just ask you, Cassian, if you could talk a little bit about the casting. process and about any
this
kind
was,
of...
in for a penny, in for a pound. I felt like, I hired Dee to do this movie, and I brought her in because I really wanted to have her taste level make this movie. I wanted to make sure that I could figure out how I was going to raise the money for it. But I had three partners, Mako, Charles King, who's an amazing guy, if you don't know him, my friend and also business partner, Chris Lamal, and a man called Teddy Schwartzman. These three guys were there for me from the start on this movie. So I was there for her. I felt like if they're gonna trust me, I'm gonna trust her. And that's the reason why I hired her in the first place. I'm going to let her figure out how she's going to make this movie. I want her to tell me. The worst thing is when I'm on a set and the director says, well, I don't know, man, what do you think? I go, what do I think? You're the friggin' director. So she said right from the start, well, first of all, Hap's going to be Rob Morgan. He was in Pariah. So you don't know him, but he's that guy. And you don't have to argue with me about it. That's basically a done deal. And then I would get these text messages at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, oh my God, there's something bad has happened. And I pick it up and look at it, and it's a photo of Rob Morgan in a different angle, from Dee, just reminding me that that's who Hap was. And then Mary J., she just wanted her. She just said, it's going to be Mary J. No, first person that she really wanted, well, apart from Rob, obviously, was Jason Mitchell. She said, I saw this kid.
He's phenomenal in this.
And straight out of Compton. He's unbelievable. And he's that guy. He's going to be that guy. So he's cast too. I was like, okay. And actually, he was very cool because we went to him and said, look, we don't really have the whole cast together yet, but she wants you. And he goes, I'm in. You just tell me who everybody else is going to be. I'm in. I'm on. And then she said Mary J. Blige. And then the White family, that was a bit more casting. That was Craig, my former assistant at William Morrison, so is at Endeavor, and so is Dee. So they started talking about the people that they had that they thought would want to do it. And one of the first ideas that they had was Carey Mulligan, and Dee was like, she's so perfect. She's so perfect because she inhabits the parts that she's in, because there's empathy right away with her, because she can be tough and she can be soft. She can be both of these things, and she's that woman, and she's perfect for it, which was great for me because Carey Mulligan's a movie star, so that helped. Jason Mitchell, his manager had been harassing us about him being in this movie, and Jason Clark had been harassing me about it and calling me up going, he's in it, he's going to be in this movie. And I'm like, yeah, hang on a second, But I'd done a movie with him called Lawless a while ago with him and Tom Hardy and Shia LaBeouf, and I really liked him. He's just a great guy and a wonderful actor. And I knew that if it came to it and she was okay with it, and she, of course, met him, talked to him, thought about it, and then said yes, that he would bring a kind of real gravitas to this thing, that he's this kind of stoic guy and he's perfect for that role in a way, and that he also would be a guy that would put up with the crazy conditions that we were in, And then Garrett Hedlund, I think, probably is the coolest piece of casting that she did. I mean, not the coolest because Jason Mitchell and Mary J are really good in the movie, but he's a young actor that has been in a few movies, and he's a guy that is considered to be kind of a matinee idol, a young up-and-coming movie star kid who hasn't quite got the movie yet that's going to turn it around for him. But she said no. He actually can act. The things I've seen him in, he can act. He's not just this beautiful-looking guy. He's a real young actor, and I think I can get something from him. I think if I put him together with them and put him into the middle of this, he's going to bring something to this. And I think the scenes between him and Mitchell in the barn are some of the most powerful scenes in the movie. He's fantastic in it. And he, is throwing, you can feel him throwing it back, the scenes, to the other actors. And he was so committed to this thing. And, when Jason Clark punches him, he really, and when Pappy slaps him across the face, he said to Jonathan Banks, dude, that wasn't a fucking slap. Come on. Sorry for my language. That wasn't a slap. give me a real one. And then we were all on the set and like, wham, and we were like, whoa. He was in it. He was in it, and they all were.
It's amazing. Congratulations to all of you on such a beautiful and incredibly timely and important film. Thank you.
Thank you.